The Epstein docs are out. What do we make of that? How to fix higher education? TikTok is all excited about a 9-month cruise. And can you do a newscast with AI and without anchors? Rebecca Gunter's here. Rob Greenlee's here. Claudia Santiago's here. I'm here. Let's do a show. Let's do a show.
It's the StreamLeader Report Live Panel. Creators talking to creators. Raw, real, and unscripted. And sometimes they say the quiet part out loud. Here are your hosts, Claudia Santiago, Rebecca Gunter, Rob Greenlee, and Ross Brand.
We got a wealth of great topics today on the StreamLeader Report, our live panel show every Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. The list is out. The documents are out. Claudia, you were brave enough to throw that as your topic into our group chat. So take it away. What do you make of this? Where do you want to go with it? It's all, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to bring it up at first because, all of it was kind of up in the air whether they were going to release the documents right away, wait till the 22nd. But yesterday it came out and it was all over media. So I thought it would be good to address it. Now, I guess having to be careful what words I use, I will just say that I'm going to refer to things as crimes. So I won't be using any terminology per se that we would maybe normally use in a face-to-face conversation. But it is quite something. I want your feedback, you guys, too. I had not heard of Epstein until actually a lot of the accusations started coming forth. What's your experience? Have you heard of him and heard of, I don't know if you would call it notoriety, but obviously criminal activity?
Yes, certainly not the first time this name has crossed my ears, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard about him, I think, when he was arrested. Was he in another country or he came back? I don't know. When they arrested him, I didn't know about the first time he had that strange deal where he was in jail but not really and could go about his business and then just come back and check in at night or whatever. I didn't know about that, but I guess I learned about him when they put him in jail, and then I learned about, all the people and, yeah, I didn't really know much about it until that arrest.
How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I've heard his name for many, many years now in the spaces, especially online. I think there's been a lot of things shared about him over the years and his connection to powerful people in government and corporations and things like that. And there's been lots of speculation that he had linkages to what is now, I guess, being termed the deep state and the CIA and things like that, and was doing a lot of kind of child trafficking kind of stuff. I know we're probably not wanting to say that, but that's kind of what is really all about, and everybody knows it that's been following this story for years. And he mysteriously died in custody and in jail, and there's been a lot of speculation that his untimely death was not an accident. But I don't know that we know that definitively, but that's certainly been speculated a lot. But now what's come out in the last couple of days is really kind of, I think there's a lot of people out there that are fearful of who was involved with him. And there's been a lot of linkages, like with Bill Gates and with other key figures out there that are heavily in the news even today. And I think a lot of them are worried that they're going to be listed here. And some of them have been actually listed in these documents. Now, my understanding is that we have to be careful of this kind of stuff too, because these people haven't been convicted of anything. So there is a tendency to throw these folks under the bus just because their name is listed on a document, and that may or may not be, it may or may not be true, or we don't know the full spectrum of these people's participation in this. So there's just a lot of finger pointing going on right now, and a lot of people denying their involvement and things like that. So it's on everybody's mind right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess I kind of thought people were talking about it as a list, and I was expecting like an Excel sheet with like name, days there,
No, it's
whatever.
more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's documents, and it's court documents, and it's, I don't know whether it's from depositions, or I haven't had a chance to really go through, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to, or I'm just going to read some summaries in the news. But the first news articles that came out about it were all basically telling us what we already knew. They were sort of recapping what we knew, and then dropping names that have long been associated with Epstein. Whether they're associated with his crimes or not, I don't know, but they're certainly associated with him. And I think the big mystery is, where did his money come from? Where did he get all these connections? Why was he able to be in with all these powerful and famous people? And why, what's going on here? And the interesting thing that I saw as I've watched a few things online about it, and one of the ones that I saw was an interview that a guy named Eric Weinstein did with a British podcaster or whatever, and he talked about his experience meeting Epstein, and he said it was pretty frightening, actually. The way the whole thing was laid out and how he conducted himself, it was like all to make him feel uncomfortable as the other party. And I mean, I guess his takeaway was, somebody created this monster. I mean, this guy was, there
was a purpose.
He couldn't have done it on his own. Let's put it that way.
Definitely a purpose.
He was created for a purpose, and then his theory was that he got bigger than the purpose. Like you let the monster out of the cage, and then you don't have complete control over the monster. And I don't mean that I'm calling anybody, although, the evidence seems to be that he was a really bad guy, but I'm just using that as an expression that, the powers that be, the security state, whatever you want to call it, if they were responsible for creating him, or, along with different international, British, Israeli, there's talk, we're all had their hooks into him through one or another of his contacts. Whoever was responsible for this, I don't think it was supposed to get to where it got to.
Yeah, and obviously,
or it did, and then he was no longer useful. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Someone decided that enough was enough, and they basically shut it down, right? So, because I guess the information about what was going on here was leaking out too much, and I mean, some of the names that are listed in association with this this whole thing are definitely scandalous, and definitely not something that we should be proud of as a country, that there's so many key prominent political leaders that have association with him
and protection.
Right. Even a name like a Bill Gates has had significant connection to him over the years. I mean, I've heard Bill Gates talk in interviews on CNN and interviews on other media sources, ask him about it. Even what's the other name? Bill Richardson, the former governor of Mexico, and Prince Andrew. There's more names that are coming out. Even I think yesterday there was a big spin up around David Copperfield. actually being involved. The magician.
Mhm.
And people were joking online that David, if David was such a good magician, why didn't he get his name off of the documents somehow, right?
Or at least make Epstein disappear before they had a chance to kill him.
Well, I just want to bring up the fact that these types of crimes are not new in society.
Right.
And Epstein, I mean, if we do history studies and go way back, the Egyptians, it was, where these types of crimes were done for certain initiations and, to gain notoriety and status or to get someplace, some political arena. So this isn't really new, but it does not minimize what's happening today. And what's really disturbing is the hush money involved, the
secrecy.
agendas, I'm going to say that, to cover up. It is consistent, the types of victims that have been coming forth and the consistency in their stories and the bravery even for them to come out now and to share this. But it's what's frightening is the hush money, the protection, like you said, Rebecca. And so it is a very real thing. And again, like Rob, thank you for saying that. This list does not incriminate anyone at this point. And I want to go there for a minute, if I can. That while it's Epstein, there's also a whole lot of going on in religious circles. Some prominent figures in those circles too. There's all kinds of stuff exploding, and again, there's a due process in place to find out what actually happened. But the bravery of some people that are stepping out and speaking on these things. But then there's the whole other camp, and this is kind of one thing that I have a beef with. That's the camp that is mocking the whole thing, accusing before convicted. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there's this whole arena of people that are just like, yeah, let's just shame them. And I get if, some of these things are very true and there is factual information on some things that this is why Epstein was in prison too, right? But there's been a due process, but I think, I'm just going to call it what I find stinky, especially online, where people could be using their voices to go, hey, you know what?
Oh, we lost Claudia.
Oh my God, I thought she was going to use her voice to say, hey, you know what?
She's back.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
The deep state.
It just kind of burns me a little bit to see the ugliness of humanity rising up. And you know what I'm saying? Like, am I speaking clearly here? I'm not sure, but
I totally get what you're saying, and
okay.
I guess we should ask what is our interest in this? Like, why do people care so much about this? Is it just voyeurism, and is it the interest in crimes and such? Is it a hope to, unmask the
perpetrators, right?
Perpetrators,
Or if there were
it,
any perpetrators,
is it just happy to slime names of people who are in a different political party, or you have they're in a rival business or what have you? Like, what is going on? Why is a story kind of, it's huge and then it disappears, and it's huge and it there's a lack of information and whatever, and it just, the whole ebb and flow of it is very strange.
Yeah.
I'll share why I'm interested in it, and that is because I think it has a lot less to do with one or two bad actors and a lot more to do with systemic grooming in vulnerable populations. I saw a very interesting hot take yesterday on this topic on TikTok about Epstein's role within a classical music conservatory. If you know the name of it, put it in the comments, folks, because I don't remember. This very elite institution in which he was highly involved, had scholarships, had a building on campus that was his own personal lodge in which he would host, like students over for whatever kind of work. Not only is it the setup of that exposition, but also what is the classical music industry like? Claudia, I'm sure you can speak to this. Mm-hmm. How cutthroat it is, how high pressure it is, how you can only be the elitist of the elite in order to pursue your music career, how you're told by all your teachers that if you're not, that there are 8,000 people behind you in the door waiting to take your place, how you have to relentlessly practice. And then once you get through conservatory, how you have to align yourself with sponsors and benefactors of this upper level of society. And we're talking about 13 and 14-year-old girls. Yeah. Who are manipulated to their career in order to fulfill these larger agendas. So for me, it's about grooming and where it's happening and how we have a blind eye to it because we think, oh, well, a music teacher is never going to, do anything. And yet all of these forces work together to turn a blind eye to the situation for...
I have my own story of, I'm not going to go into details, but, when I was studying opera, that one of my teachers tried to take advantage of me, and I was very young and impressionable, but I was able to escape the grasp of that. But I think you're so right, Rebecca. There's so much pressure. There's so much of the grooming going on. There's so much of that. But then there's the creative mind as well. And creatives are, musician types we're wired different. And that's what makes us feel and do so well at our craft. Now, the thing is that I also, through all this and through what's going on, I see such an opportunity to help people too, because addictions don't start just like that. These crimes have shown up because of years of addiction in that realm. And again, I'm being careful with my wording that I'm choosing here because we are on YT, but those types of crimes develop over time. It's like a cocaine addict or a heroin addict. At first, they start off with the smaller drugs, and then they need a bigger dopamine hit, and their brain actually changes. So I think what I see through all this is there's been some amazing opportunities to talk with people and to, as they start talking about some of their kind of addictions in that area, to say, hey, you know what, this can be stopped before it gets greater. You can get help. There is help out there. So anyways, just my little take on that at the creative world.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful too, because Jeffrey Epstein was never convicted of anything. And the only thing that's spiraled around him is associations around accusations.
Well, didn't he?
And I'm not saying that.
Didn't he plead guilty to something, which is why he had that first jail term that was.
I think he pleaded
when Acosta,
guilty.
Acosta was the
correct.
Involved as on the prosecuting side.
Yeah, I guess he.
I'll look that up. Continue.
Did plead guilty, but at the end of the day, a lot of this is very politically motivated. And you combine this with all the attention that came to the movie, The Sounds of Freedom, right? That came out like maybe 6-8 months ago, and how much controversy that created, and lack of support by the institutions of power that didn't want to have that topic raised. Right. And so now we're seeing it happen, kind of in this case, which is which is another kind of, I think that there is a thirst out there for this, what's being accused here of getting shut down. The abuse of children and things like that. I think if that's really what happened here, getting that shut down is what I think people are really focused on. And if there's key leaders that we supposedly trust and have in places of power, there is a reason to root those people out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Let me just bring in the history here. I'm just going to read this real quick. March 2005, police in Palm Beach, Florida, begin investigating Epstein after the family of a 14-year-old girl reports she was a victim of a crime at his mansion. Multiple underage girls, many of them high school students, would later tell the police that Epstein hired them to give criminal massages. May 2006, Palm Beach police officials signed paperwork to charge Epstein with multiple counts of unlawful crimes. But the top prosecutor, state attorney Barry Critcher, takes the unusual step of sending the case to a grand jury. 2006 July, Epstein arrested again on a relatively minor charge. One count of soliciting prostitution. Let's see. He's already the prosecutor. Krisher is already being accused of giving Epstein special treatment. The FBI begins an investigation. 2007, federal prosecutors prepare an indictment against Epstein, but for a year, the money manager's lawyers engage in talks with U.S. Attorney in Miami, Alexander Acosta, about a plea bargain that would allow Epstein to avoid a federal prosecution. Epstein's lawyers decry his accusers as unreliable witnesses. June 2008, Epstein pleads guilty to state charges, one count of solicitation of prostitution and one count of solicitation of prostitution from someone under the age of 18. He is sentenced to 18 months in jail. Under a secret agreement, the U.S. Attorney's Office agrees not to prosecute Epstein for federal crimes. Epstein serves most of his sentence in a work release program that allows him to leave jail during the day to go to his office, then return at night. And then July 2009, Epstein released from jail for the next decade. Multiple women who say they are Epstein's victims wage a legal fight to get his federal non-prosecution agreement voided and hold him and others liable for the abuse. And there's more, and then it jumps ahead to 2018.
Wow.
Good times.
Yeah.
So clearly, based on the allegations, based on what we're seeing in lawsuits, based on what people have claimed, based on the media story, they really went after the and none of it should be made light of, but they really did not go after the most serious of crimes that he could have been prosecuted under. I mean,
Right.
this was about as sweetheart a deal as you could get
Yeah.
if he's done any of the things that he's accused of.
And I don't know as a fact, something I'd have to look into more, but I have read and heard a few things where communication with certain powers that be and monies got exchanged where do not disclose this.
Right.
Keep this covered up. So then there was things that were very legit or said to be very legit, that there was hush money there and people in power that were able to execute on that. So again, I'm not saying that's a fact. It's just things I've heard. I don't know how true any of that is.
And that's right there is why a lot of people don't bother coming forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. I mean, there's former U.S. presidents that are listed here. So, it doesn't go any higher in the political infrastructure too, on both sides
And
of the aisle.
the circles of the elite, the higher elite circles, there's a lot of money there, and there's a lot of power there.
Mhm.
I know in the entertainment world, even in the circles,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how good you are or what you're associated with, but if you're in that circle, you will get an in on something. So it's very disturbing. Like I mentioned, I brought up, and I'm not going to go there today, but even in some religious, large organizations and large leaders, there's some things going on right now, and people are covering up because it's that religious leader that they followed forever and given money to. So it's very hard to swallow that somebody that you admired or followed would have such a secret life. So,
and it's very hard to swallow that the people associated with that person will turn a blind eye with something that's so blatantly wrong in front of them. And it happens in families, and it happens in institutions, and it happens in the arena, and it breaks my heart.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, like I said earlier, then you've got the whole other camp where I see them like the court jesters, they're just mocking. And I just, even entertainers and comedians in my industry that are just putting out garbage content and sliming people before they're convicted. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I hate that.
Yeah. So I don't know where this goes. I think it's got everybody's attention, and we're all spun up about it, and people's names are getting thrown around, but I don't know that what does it really mean in the context of things? I don't know.
And how widespread is this? And how, and when I say widespread, I'm not necessarily talking about how widespread the crimes are, but how much is this normal operating procedure? Right. Is this what goes on?
Or who is the question, right?
And is this what goes on?
It's not
beyond the oversight of Congress, the public. If you want to play at that level, you want to be president, or you want to be, a Bill Gates level executive or whatever, or a major science researcher at a university that's getting huge funding from the government, you have to make deals, so to speak, or close your eyes to not things that you have no power to impact, but things that you could speak out against, even at your own risk. But you're just like, hey, go along to get along, or I'm so close to being in power that
Well, this person could ruin my career.
Because there is the actual crimes and how horrific that side of it is. But then there's also the idea, which I think is why there's so much interest on this, is who the hell's in on this? Like, how many people that we look to and we've been sold as these wonderful leaders and philanthropists and, humanitarians and these NGOs and everything else that are supposedly doing good work, and this is what a good part of they're about. To say, well, I don't want to say that, like, allegedly, but like,
I don't even.
What the hell is going on in this thing?
Well, and
or
also,
is this partly a psyop to distract us from something else?
All right. I mean, it's like, well, why would these prominent people make this kind of mistake? Is the question that I have. What was going on here that motivated them to even be involved in this to begin with? And I have a hard time believing it's there to be a child predator, because that would be like, career suicide to get involved in something like that knowingly in advance. unless it just doesn't make common sense, right?
Is it though, Rob?
Well, it depends on if this person is really
grown.
evil or not, right? If
I
this
mean,
person is really evil, it's kind of a dumb move, right?
well, like Priscilla Presley was like 12 years old when Elvis started pursuing her. Like Beyonce was like 17.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
I'm just saying, like, we're so normalized that powerful men get young girls already.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's nothing in this that really accuses any of them. I mean, like New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, his name is listed here, but nobody's said anything about what he did. Is it just because he was there once or something like that? I don't, it's easy to associate activities with this by guilt by association, right? But it's also a very dumb move on the part of these people to be associated with this guy, right? I mean, I've heard Bill Gates talk about it many times and say he was there to try and get funding for a project that he had because, this guy had lots of money and he was offering grants to this and that. And just like what, Ross just said about, this guy going in and donating to a project or something like that. I've heard examples of that too. So maybe there was two heads of this beast, right? So the philanthropist on one side that was trying to do good, and then there was this dark side to this guy, right?
I mean, a guy who's not an academic, who's not,
right,
other than doing shady finance deals,
right.
If he did,
right.
I don't really know what his expertise is. And yet it's like he's got a seat at the table at the orchestra, at Harvard, at MIT.
Yeah.
Like why is Stephen Hawking why is Stephen Hawking dealing with the
Yeah.
I'm going to push back that is it that they made dumb decisions or is it that it's so normalized?
Well, I think clearly if this guy's been convicted of being of the crimes that or even accused of this, these people are crazy to be associated with him.
Well,
that's all.
The question is, from what angle is it being normalized? Is it normalized in this is a normal human desire or a normal male desire, or is it normalized in that this is how intelligence agencies for an organized crime for decades and 100 years or whatever have gone about getting information from people or blackmailing people.
That's been mentioned too, right?
Is there pressure like, hey, just I'm going to give your thing $100 million. Let so and so give you a massage or whatever, and you're like, it's like maybe she's 17, but maybe she's not. I don't know. Like, I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying, this isn't so much like guy goes down there because there's young girls. Guy goes down there to get Jeffrey Epstein to donate to, or to get money moved around, or to get the funds to the Clinton Foundation or what have you. And then also, this is, I'm not saying it's forced upon these guys. I'm not saying that, but some of them it might be, and some of it, some are more than willing to take advantage of opportunities. But I think
it's like
there's
a fly
something more
trap,
complex.
right? It's like a fly trap.
I think there's something more complex than human nature going on here.
It's a negative feedback loop. Like you need all of those aspects for it to work.
Exactly. Right. And I'm just going to add this. You've got to be pretty naive if you think some guy's going to go to the Epstein Island and not see anything, not experience anything. There's in gatherings like this, the drugs are rampant. Okay, mind-altering hallucinogenics and stuff that is running rampant. And if you know much about addiction, I'm going back to that because some people may go, well, how could they make a choice if they're so prominent? Well, if you look at even White House stuff, like they're fed, some of those presidents are fed drugs just to keep them going because their schedules are so, okay, their mind, like when there's addiction, the prefrontal cortex, the lobes are not getting enough blood supply. They cannot think right and wrong anymore. The brain has been altered. So some of these people have lived a life of growing addiction in some area or another, whether it's sex addiction, drug addiction, whatever.
Sure.
What happens over time, and as they frequent parties like this, hello, why the hell would you go to an island without your spouse and with hello, like it's like that stuff is running rampant. And some of the testimonies, even from the victims, are just that the drugs were rampant. So they can't think straight. They're jeopardizing their position because the brain is just not thinking too. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that this isn't, we can't just try to reason this in a normal context of how you would think, because that's not how they're thinking.
Yeah.
Or
They do live in a different type of experience. I mean, a lot of these billionaires and politicians, they live a different kind of a lifestyle than we can even associate with. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
In entertainment, any of the big acts, there's always the doctor in the house, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the money's there. The drugs are rampant. They're feeding that. And this is why they need more and more and more. And it's not just drug addiction and their sexual addiction. And all of a sudden that turns into the crimes that we're talking about today.
When you're talking about, let me just ask this question and interject. When you're talking about this level of wealth, celebrity, and power, aren't you talking about people who have security with them, either Secret Service if they're a former president, or people who are there to protect them, people who are an assistant there who manages the schedule, so you just show up and sing if you're at a certain level, or they manage the books so that the scientist doesn't have to busy his mind with filling out his daily calendar. Like, do these people leave these people behind, or are these people in on it, or there has to be another layer of people. These people don't just don't just book their own flight, I don't think, all the time. You know what I mean?
I've worked with some really, and toured with some really high profile people that when I did those gigs, the security is private security. It's not the city security. It's hired private security, and whatever they pay them, they will cover up whatever needs to be covered up. I hate to say that, but I've seen it firsthand. And what's done to younger people is covered up. So what I'm saying here is, and by the time it gets to that level, there's been a lot of years of this brain infecting activity, so to speak. It does change the brain patterns, and they cannot think right and wrong. To them, it's the next dopamine hit, it's the next hit. So anyways, I'm just saying from just my personal experience in some of that arena, it can be very scary.
Yeah, and a lot of them kind of think that they're invincible too. That can play a factor too, and they can do whatever they want, and that they don't have to be accountable to anybody.
And as Beauty Bubble mentions, her experience with the Sultan of Brunei, ironclad NDA of the most serious kind, not to mention other threats that'll, ensure that you don't speak up.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like with all this, I mean, you can get lost in the whole vortex of it. But for me, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, what grieves me is how people are just it's all about the rumor mill, and it's all about the shaming and all that. And I hate that. And the stance that I'm taking is I'm seeing the opportunity that there is right now to address maybe some people that have gone through, they are victims, or some that are going, you know what, I actually struggle in this area and I need some help. Okay, there is help before it gets worse. Or I had somebody reach out to me the other day, Claudia, I'm touring with so and so, and this is happening. I don't know what to do. If I leave, it's my bread and butter. If I don't leave, I could be incriminated along with that. You know what I'm saying? So being a support to people too right now, rather than joining the mockery, jokers in the court or the rumor mill.
Claudia, what was your advice?
I told them, you know what? I think it's time to involve another party, like a counselor, because I'm not a counselor. I'm a good friend and I'm one you trust. But this level of thing is you're going to need a professional counselor that is going to help you navigate an out as you're going to need to, because if this person would stay in that, it would not be good over long term. And so this person got the counselor and now they're walking that out. And so the only time I'm there to give us support is just, hey, I just saw the counselor, we're taking some steps forward. Great. Okay, you're not alone. You know what? This is good. It's going to be a life change and a career change, but it's going to be good for you in the long term.
What do you wish people knew about the music industry that they don't? In terms of this kind of world happening around you, and you've seen firsthand, and you've people are reaching out to you and thinking about kind of like, what are the industries that rely so heavily on influence and power that it would influence them to turn a blind eye?
It's like Hollywood. Everybody loves us. Everybody loves our gift. They love what we bring to the table, but do they really care about us? And that's where also, even in Nashville, I'm connected with a whole, I wouldn't call it underground, but they are trusted, amazing people that have been in the industry, dealt with the big names, but they're literally there to pick up the pieces of people that have gotten into addictions or have gotten in weird circles like we're talking about here, that are helping them get out. It's almost like, it's that's needed, because really for entertainers, people will use us and then dump us.
I think that's one of the threads that connects the entertainment industry to what's going on here, to Hollywood, and to other big industries as well, is, how the people in power see other people as disposable, as their life is worth less. They're clearly, in the case of the allegations, let's just say that, right? Clearly, they're not picking any young girl. They're picking young girls who have a need for family, or who are impoverished, or want to get into I can offer you something. They're selecting their victims by people who, who's less likely to have a powerful father coming to look, or a powerful mother who can get resources to get their child back in 2 seconds. Like, who's from a broken home that, doesn't have a parent around all day or whatever. I think there's a level of evil here with the disposability of people. And I'm sure to some degree, even when entertainers are picked to be, who can we easily handle and manage, and who's too much trouble to work with because they have a team or a family that cares about them, and it doesn't need them to be successful at this at any cost.
I'm going to push back on you, Ross, because I think that looking only for people who are vulnerable or come from broken homes ignores a whole other swath of people who are vulnerable in a different way. So say you're
I'm just using that as an example.
I hear you, but I'm just saying, like, say you're you're a violin virtuoso and you're going to this music conservatory, and the only way that you can actually be a violinist is to be in alignment with a patron, and that maybe you do have a powerful dad who's going to come down here, but maybe your parents are like, well, we know things are getting a little weird over there, but it's the only way she'll be able to play for this orchestra or get second chair or whatever. And only looking for like the unstable or the ignored or the marginalized populations.
But I also said people who need something. And that falls under people who need something.
We all need something. Like, I don't know. It's just...
So many times, even in the industry, and I know in Hollywood, it's like this a lot too, is the pressure, touring pressure is huge. Pre-touring, you are on diets, you are
sleep deprived.
You are sleep deprived, you are working, lifting weights, you are like, it's like being an Olympic champion, because pre-touring, you're preparing to be on that road 24. So I don't know if y'all saw Shania when she was on tour. All of a sudden, she just like dropped all this weight. Almost looked unhealthy. And I love Shania, but okay. So what I'm saying is, sometimes, whether it's Hollywood money or label money, it's a business. They've got investors, and they need that artist, come hell or high heaven, to finish that tour. So what happens? They end up at a party one night. They may never have tried any drug, and all of a sudden they get a hit of something and they're hooked. Guess what? Next night, that artist can't perform unless they got another hit. So the labels and the people, the security around them, the peeps around them, go make sure the doctor's in the house to feed that artist some more of that drug. So this goes on and on and on and on and on. Why? Because it's a friggin' business, and they need to finish that tour. Otherwise, all the sponsors don't, get paid, the return. So it's a very high pressure and very highly addictive. And the creative brain is very highly addictive too. So I just speak from my industry, but that's what happens.
I think to Ross's point of vulnerability, for sure. And also the people we need in order to get our career leg up.
And as being, you said something there that's very deep, Claudia, and you said there's an addictive personality in creators and artists and stuff like that, and taking away the microphone, taking away the stage, taking away the ability to live stream or do a show or what have you, can be worse than death to somebody for whom that's their entire identity, that's their joy, their whole life is built around that, and that's a tremendous power that's also held over people's heads. I know when I worked in radio, there were program directors who, kept the troops in line by simply opening the door and go, look at the number of tapes I have here. When people used to send resume, I have packages. I get 150 packages a day of people who want to work here. If you don't want to work Thanksgiving, I got 1,000 people here who are as good as you who work Thanksgiving.
Exactly,
now,
Ross. Exactly.
It wasn't said like that, but why else are those packages sitting around? Right. And that the person's, she's never going to open that one of those packages, but they're there to intimidate you that, hey, at any time you can be replaced, and you will be replaced eventually. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where it's so key. Like, what I find with situations like this is look for the opportunity to help others. Like, when I'm coaching artists, one of the big things we work on is mindset and the foundations. Your identity, your value is not based on what you do. It's who you are. So if there comes a time in the career where you got to take a year off, guess what? You're not going to spiral down. You're going to go, no, you know what? I'm worth this time off. I am worth being off the road for a while. I am worth getting healthy if I am worth going to rehab if I need to. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think we should save our other topics for next week because this is obviously this is a massive, massive issue, and there's so many angles. And I think one thing maybe to talk about before we wrap up is that this is the good side of digital media and the entrepreneurial creator and so forth, is that for those who can build their own platform and can attract their own audience, they're no longer under the thumb of power brokers who don't care about them and don't care about their art and don't care about, like, you can, I don't want to sell it as a dream, like everybody can do it, but people are doing it, and they are building their own media platform, and there are independent artists doing their own distribution and all that stuff. And, to bring it full circle, the StreamLeader Report, we want less people to have to deal with gatekeepers. We want people to be able to go directly to their audience and directly to the world and sink or swim on their own merits. I mean, right now we have the platforms hanging over us, and they have certainly a say in who succeeds and who doesn't based on how they change their algorithms and stuff. But it's far better than, a casting couch to get your show out there.
Ross, that is such a beautiful wrap up and a message here to this conversation. And I'll just add my favorite Prince quote, which is, if you don't own the masters own you.
Exactly. So good. Yes.
Beautiful.
Rob, final thought?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated topic and lots of, ways to look at it. And, being a creator is a challenging kind of endeavor that involves a lot of being able to be flexible and being able to be accommodating of others. And as this maps back to what we've seen in this news around the Epstein stuff, it does have an impact on why some of these people have gotten kind of ensnarled in this. Is this kind of pursuit of things that are bring kind of an emotional benefit to them that may be unhealthy, and that is unfortunate that we're seeing this thing unfold the way it is, and how it is a reflection of probably a lot of things that are going on in the world that are not good.
Claudia, what's going on at Santiago.com, ClaudiaSantiago.com? A lot of good things going on there.
Yeah, well, I just wrapped up Christmas Eleganza, which is my annual Christmas show, and we've been overtime recording and filming and traveling in all different countries working on this project. So the plan is to be in Italy next year for 2024 Christmas and do a release there.
Where in Italy?
In Sabbionetta, Italy, which is in the Lombardy region. So northern Italy. That's kind of the plan, and I'm excited about that. And so if you get a chance, go to my website, and if you click on Christmas Eleganza, you can actually get access into seeing some of that we did in 2023.
That's exciting. Rebecca, what's going on with the Stone Fruit Roll-Up?
Oh my God.
Have you had any guests on lately?
If we could just go back in a time machine 90 minutes ago, fresh off the press, hot off the press, you guys, Stone Fruit Roll-Up featured the press tour launch of 100 predictions from live streaming and digital media volume 4. So every face you saw on this screen, you saw on that roll-up. I encourage everybody to check out the replay on that one, because it is beautiful, Ross, to hear you talk about the book, kind of beyond just like, hey, lots of people came together and did something really cool, and how it's a very personal project to you. Much people should care about it. So if you're a fan of Ross like I am, please go over to the Stone Fruit channel, STONEDFRUIT, and check out the roll up from today, because it's an awesome episode.
Well, thank you for putting that together. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Claudia and Rob, for being a part of it. Rob, what do we got coming up tonight on Podcasting Tips with Rob Greenlee?
Yeah, I've got a successful podcaster that's going to join me, John Miles, who hosts a show called Passion Struck is the name of the show, and he's built quite a empire for himself with books and video and audio podcasting and stuff. So it'll be great to kind of pick his brain around coming up with podcast tips for podcasters. So that's at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So if you wanted to swing on over to the StreamYard channels on YouTube or Twitter or any of these platforms to check out the show tonight. So great to have you there.
Sounds good. You can catch us again for another edition of the StreamLeader Report Live Panel every Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. You can catch all the replays on, I think, most of our YouTube channels, certainly on mine. And I know Rebecca puts it on LinkedIn, and I think her channel as well. Rob, on your channel, and Claudia, I don't know if it's on yours or it's on your website, but wherever you want to go, whoever your favorite member of the panel is, go check out the show. And we will see you again next week. For Rob Greenlee, Claudia Santiago, and Rebecca Gunter, I'm Ross Brand. Take care, everybody.